morning weekly setup. My name is Bailey Grady, and I am dialing in from Hendersonville, Tennessee. I don't know why I always look out my window, like I have to look outside to remember where I am. But I'm dialing in from Hendersonville, Tennessee, which is just north of Nashville. So good to be here with all of you, and I'm so excited. It is a brand new theme today because even though it is the last day of May, that means tomorrow is literally our first day of June. And so, since this is our weekly setup, we've got to get ready for the next week ahead, which means we are officially stepping into June. It is wild that we are almost halfway through the year. I can't believe it. But I am excited about this next month and the theme ahead. Be sure that you have your chat set to everyone. Sometimes it will default to host and panelists, and when it does that, only myself and Maya, who is also here with me, the fabulous Maya, she'll be hanging out in the chat. Only she and I will be able to see what you're sharing if it's set to host and panelists. And I'm sure that you want to share it with everybody because everybody here has awesome suggestions and insight, and we can all kind of relate to one another. So be sure you've got that chat set to everyone. Also, as we go through, as always, we'll kind of be sharing some different things up on the screen. Please feel free to take pictures or grab screenshots, however it is that you're tuning in. And then also, whenever you're done, if you would like to take pictures of what you did in your journal, we would love to see that on Sonder Club as well. So let me run through our community guidelines real quick. So first and foremost, please be kind and courteous to yourself and to others. No promotions or spam, please. And we're going to respect everyone's privacy here. This is our little safe community space, which means we also can't have any hate speech or bullying. And then if you would limit repetitive product and accessory questions, we don't mind a little bit of chatter. Obviously, we're all here because we love our amazing journals. But if you got anything that you want to know, like best advice for stickers or pens or whatever, we can have some of that chat here. But also, best place to put that is Sonder Club, just because you'll be able to crowdsource a lot more opinions. Likewise, if you have any questions that myself and Maya can't help with because we don't have access to your account, your shipping info, your subscription, anything like that, we'll redirect you over to the headquarters team at hello@silkandsonder.com so that they can help you out with that. And then finally, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So this means that you are the captain of your ship today. And if you feel like you are starting to head into choppy waters and you wanted a nice smooth sailing, choppy waters were not in your plan today, just turn that wheel and steer on away from those choppy waters. You can do something else in your journal if we start to touch on something that brings up what I like to call the crunchy feelings, if you're not ready to engage with those. And instead, just hang out, listen to the music, participate in the chat, and we'll be moved on to something else before you know it. But sometimes those crunchy feelings can lead to really good insight, really good aha moments. And so if you're feeling brave and you feel like you are ready to paddle through those choppy waters, then by all means, full steam ahead, and we will be here to support you the best way that we can. So today, we will be doing our purpose mind map. New theme. Yay! We'll also be doing our rosebud thorn reflection exercise, thinking about last week before we move into our next week ahead and setting up those weekly pages. So, purpose. Hello, June. Hello, new theme. Hello, big theme, right? Purpose. That is a very intimidating word. At least it is to me. When I hear purpose, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're telling me I got to figure out what the meaning of life is for me? That's a lot to ask on a Saturday morning, right? But I think that if you had a chance to read through Meha's letter, she actually talks about in that letter that purpose kind of changes and grows along with you as you move through life. And so I think it is a lot healthier to think of purpose as a more seasonal thing, the same way we think of everything, right? And as we move through seasons in life, there are core values that are key to us that are always there, right? No matter what's going on, no matter what we're going through or what we're experiencing or what's going on, there are certain parts of who we are that are always there with us through everything. And I think that those are kind of core purpose pillars But you're also going to have things that change. You're going to have interests that change. You're going to discover new passions. You're going to meet new people. You're going to have new experiences. And when you do that, as you move through life, your worldview like broadens. And so you might discover something that you've never thought about before that becomes really important to you. And so I think it is a big ask, right? To say like, hey, we need you to figure out your purpose right now, because you may not have encountered the thing that tells you what that like big broad purpose is, right? But sometimes your current purpose might look like exploration. It might look like trying to broaden those horizons and trying those new things and meeting those new people and seeing what's out there and what's available to you and how you feel about it. And I know some of you already feel like you know what your compass is for you, what that true north is, and that's amazing, because you can really use this time to really dive into that and make sure that you're perfectly aligned to what that big thing is for you. But if you're like me and you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds really intimidating, just know that you don't have to have it all figured out this month. There are some different quotes and things up on the screen. And obviously, you know, you've got this quote from Oprah. There's so many quotes from Oprah about purpose, where she says, follow your passion, it will lead you to your purpose. But I also like this quote from Picasso where it says, the purpose of art is washing the dust away of our daily life off our souls. And let there be no purpose in friendship save the deepening of spirit. And appreciate where you are in the journey, even if it's not where you want to be. Every season serves a purpose. Because I feel like all three of those quotes are pointing us to purposes of specific things in our life, and also pointing us to the fact that purpose can change, right? And then I also like the little quote in the bottom left that says, everyone's purpose is the same, to share your full self with the world, right? Which obviously means that everybody's purpose is going to look a little bit different, because everyone's full self is a little bit different. So all things for you to ponder as we begin to engage with our new theme this month. And we're going to start that with our mind map. So for those of you that maybe haven't been to a weekly social in a while, I see lots of familiar names. Hello, welcome back. But if there's anybody here that hasn't been here in a while, or maybe you haven't done a weekly yet, each week in our weekly socials, we do an activity that we call our mind map, where we focus in on our theme with a different prompt for the week. This is not something that is pre-printed in the journal by any means. So please feel free to use a blank space, or, you know, the little scratch pad or thoughts, whatever it is that speaks to you as far as jotting some thoughts down. I always just use the very last blank page in the journal, because then it's easy for me to flip to. But whatever feels right for you, please feel free to use that for your mind map. So our mind map prompt for this week is, we're going to ask you to list 5 things that you would put on a bucket list. This could be a summertime bucket list. This could be a before you turn, 60 bucket list, or 80 or 30, whatever, age you want to put on that. It could be like a, before my time here on Earth is done bucket list. But you're going to list 5 things that you put on a bucket list. And then you're going to think about, why are these things important for you to experience? And I'll rephrase this a little bit to say, let's put up to 5 things. So like, if you can only think of 1 or 2 things, that's okay. If you can think of more, great, put those down, but let's like try to limit it to 5, because I think the important part about this prompt is really digging in and figuring out, why are those things on your list? Why do they spark joy? Why do they inspire you? Why are they important to you, right? Because I think this all kind of starts to give us clues about how we can broaden those horizons and start to discover things about ourselves and figure out where that purpose compass is pointing us, right? So here is my mind map. It's covered up with all these things here. But what I wrote here is at the top, and you still have your little prompt here in the bottom left if you need that, but I will jump back and forth between those slides. So a few things that I have on my just general life bucket list is to visit all 50 states, because I believe there is value in the understated and ordinary, and that culture can change in short distances. I also want to travel to Japan, because it's truly a dream, and it would be an enormous way to give back to myself and expand my life experience. I also would like to write a book. I'm not sure exactly what or how or why or what it looks like yet, but I would like to write one, I think, because I believe words are powerful magic in this world, and I hope to share that magic with others in ways that matter and last. I also would like to go whale watching because I love to be connected with the planet and be reminded of how vast and incredible it is. And then learn to communicate in another language. I'm not going to put the pressure on myself to become fluent in something because, maybe I can and that would be awesome, but it also sounds really hard. I would just like to be able to have basic communication in another language with people because I think genuine connection requires respect, curiosity, and courtesy. So that's what I wrote. And then I kind of sat back and I took a second and I thought, okay, is there something that like all of these things have in common? Like, do I see any sort of common theme jumping out at me? And what I kind of saw or what spoke to me was adventure, connection, storytelling, and gratitude. So those are four little areas that I can kind of start looking at when I'm trying to think about how do I want to broaden my experience? How do I want to explore and think about this new theme? Maybe I can think about doing things that spark a little adventure or that foster connection or that, allow me to tap into storytelling or allow me to express gratitude because all of those things kind of speak to that for me. So, enough of me blubbering. I am going to hop back and forth between these slides here. Oh, and I forgot to mention there are, some little bucket lists up on the screen to maybe give you some inspiration and jog your brain a little bit. And I love this bright yellow quote here that says, "Dreams are for free, so why not dream big?" Right? It doesn't cost you anything to dream, so don't put any limits on yourself. So I'm gonna put on some music for y'all. If you feel comfortable sharing the chat, we'd love to see what's on your bucket list and the whys. And then we'll move into our next activity. Thank you all for spending some time with us. If you're still working on it, no worries. That's okay. You can continue to work on it while we kind of go through or come back to it after. Whenever you do get those things jotted down and those becauses or whys or however you want to phrase it, see if you can take that step back and find any kind of commonality. Because I can see just from what some of you are sharing in the chat, like some of you really value like memories. Some of you really value like new experiences and just like adventure and like kind of the unexplored, right? Or like the just the feeling of new. Like you love like new physical sensations, new physical challenges, or new mental challenges, right? So I can already kind of see some themes like interwoven in there just from what you're sharing. So it'll be really cool to see what you pick up on, and we'd love to see it if you feel comfortable sharing in Sonder Club. We are now going to hop into our weekly setup, and we always start our weekly setup by reflecting on the week before with our rose, bud, and thorn. So if you're in your June journal, this should be on page 30. So kind of just thinking back over the last 7 days and thinking about a rose, which is something that went well, a bright spot, something that made you smile. Maybe it made the week a little bit easier. Your bud, so what could bloom, something on the horizon, something you could be looking forward to, maybe something that even makes you a little bit nervous, because sometimes those things are intertwined, that anticipation and anxiety, right? And then a thorn, something that did not go well, something that was hard that maybe you could use some support with. So I always like to do mine in reverse. So my thorn is that this past weekend, so not like today, but last Saturday, was the start of my terrible, all horrible, no good, very bad weekend. And I have to give a shout out to Nathania, who is one of our community members, who said that it sounded like I needed somebody to read this book to me. um, but my thorn is that, Saturday I was going to take myself out for a little solo date because my husband was out of town, and instead I backed into our neighbor's car accidentally. It was a whole thing. And then the very next day, I locked myself out of the house without my phone. And I had to, walk across the street and knock on a stranger's door and ask to use their phone and all the things. And it was a lot for like a 48-hour period of time. Um, but I'm actually going to jump up to my rose, which is community, because thank goodness most of the people involved with me backing into the car were like so gracious and so understanding and so kind. And the one person that was like a little prickly, we'll say, actually ended up apologizing to me later. So that was really nice. And then obviously the neighbor that helped me out when I was locked out of the house, she could not have been nicer. She literally like welcomed me into her home, and like I felt so taken care of in the 45 minutes that I was there trying to get a hold of people to get me some help and get me back into the house. We also went to trivia on Tuesday with some friends who live here in the area, and so yeah, my rose is definitely community this week for sure. And then my bud is our new theme, purpose, because I just feel like I don't know. I feel like this theme is coming at just like the exact right time for me. It's one of those things where I feel like I am feeling like this is the next right thing for me to focus on. And so I'm excited to dive in this month. So I will put on some music so you all can hopefully share with us what your rose, bud, and thorn is. And then we will move into our weekly setup. Thank you all for taking some time to reflect and sharing. If you're still sharing, please do so. This is one of my favorite activities that we do every week because I think it lets us really get a glimpse into like what's going on in each other's lives. Like I saw a couple of like roses that have been buds for like a few weeks, and like it's so nice to share in that excitement with you all as those things happen and start to unfold. And likewise, it's always nice to be able to provide support for those thorns. So please feel free to continue sharing. But we are going to finally dive into our weekly setup. So we're on pages 32 and 33 this week for our first full week of June. And we're going to be diving into each of these sections on these pages here, starting on page 32 with how we want to feel. Now, I always tie this back into my word of the year, and my word of the year this year is serenity. So instead of like picking a feeling, I said I want to create space for serenity by getting outside. The weather here has just been like, I swear it's been raining nonstop for like a month and it's really getting to me. But in the moments where there is a break in the rain, I have not been getting outside like I should. So I really need to do that. There is a word cloud there that might spark some inspiration for you. And don't worry, I will hop through these slides. So, like, for example, I'm hopping to this slide, but I will hop back to the other slide in a second. If you saw something on there that you wanted to see again. But these are all amazing examples for this section that came from you all in Sonder Club. And you can see that you do not have to settle on just one word. You can choose multiple, you can choose a quote, whatever it is going to kind of set the tone and overall vibe for your week ahead. So I'll put on a very quick song for you all, and then we will move into our next section together. All right. If you weren't able to settle on a word or feeling, don't worry. Sometimes this actually ends up being the last thing that I fill out in my journal because I got to figure everything else out before I can figure out how I want to feel about it. But we are going to go ahead and hop down to the center part of that page, looking at the sections that are titled Major Weekly 3 Goals and Weekly To-Dos. Now, I use the Silk and Sonder personalized life coach program, and so I get that delivered to me weekly, and it comes with 3 affirmations. So instead of 3 major goals, I just put my 3 affirmations there, and that just works a lot better for me personally, but you do whatever works best for you. So under my to-dos, I write down, like, I use the little calendar there to figure out like plans and stuff I have, and I write down actual commitments. And then I usually try to write down 3 sort of I'll call them soft to-dos, like non-committal to-dos that kind of support those 3 affirmations. So, for example, that first affirmation is I balance independence with thoughtful action, designing environments that support my growth and peace. So I said I'm going to ask for help cleaning the deck because that will help me get outside more, which ties into how I want to feel, which is another thing to point out here, which is that a lot of folks will kind of combine the weekly to-dos with the weekly major 3. You can see some examples there. But also sometimes folks will tie it up into that feeling of what you just listed and how I want to feel. The example in like the bottom right is pretty cool to me because they are taking two of their goals and tying it to the to-dos. And then there's one goal, which is actually like an area of focus. It's me that they're tying to their habits and activities. So you can really treat these sections completely individually, or you can kind of tie them all together, like focus that how I want to feel into those major goals and then tie it into the to-dos to support those goals, or tie it into the habits and activities to support those goals, right? Whatever makes sense to you and your brain. And if you're not sure what makes sense yet, just try something out, right? If it doesn't work, guess what? Next week is a new week and you can always try something new again, or try it again if you thought maybe it needed a little bit more time. Like we talked about at the beginning, right? Our theme this month is purpose, and that involves a little bit of exploration and trial and error and experimentation. So feel free to try something new this week if you haven't in a while. Here are some other examples for that weekly to-do section specifically. If you've got a lot going on, we always like to point out that Eisenhower decision matrix there in the top left. It can kind of help you make sense of a really jumbled to-do list. We also like to call out the Pomodoro technique if you've got things on your to-do list that keep coming back week after week after week because you're not getting to them. That Pomodoro technique of like setting a timer and working on it for a set amount of time and then, kind of doing it in chunks can help you really get started and kind of start to chip away at that, because sometimes getting started is the hardest part. You can kind of use this space for reminders, things you need to remember to do this week, things you want to do this week, traditional to-do lists. I like this if then statements where it's like, if you do laundry, then you will feel less overwhelmed, kind of putting that why behind the task. You can try a to be list if you're wanting to focus more on like mindset instead of like productivity. You could do a need, want, hope list. And of course, you can always do a to-do list where you write things down as you get them done instead of all the things you need to do. So then at the end of the week, you can be like, look at everything I got done instead of looking at everything that's still there. We love bingo here at Silk and Sonder, so feel free to turn any of this into a bingo at any point in your journal. I also like the embrace and release in those to-do sections and those do's and don'ts. You can try dividing into different areas of focus or routines, or you can always just do stickers and doodles here. I also love that little mental health corner with the stickers. It's super cute. And then we have more areas of focus here if you want to like break down those major three goals. Sometimes that can be a great idea. Yes, Maggie, it's so cute. I loved it. Thank you for sharing. Sometimes you like listing out three major to-dos. It's kind of nice to break it into areas of focus because then you can make sure that three areas of your life are kind of getting a little bit of attention, right? Or maybe you need to put all of your focus into one area for that week because it's just that important. And if that's the case, go for it, right? Like we talked about, you can tie this into how you want to feel. You can do affirmations or self-care here like I do, or set actual goals, commitments, and accountability. Try to switch it up, right? You could move your to-dos and goals to other areas if needed. Just because it says to-dos here, you don't have to put your to-dos here. If you want to put them on the other page and like change the meal plans to to-dos, that's going to work better for your life. Switch it up, change it. There are no rules here. We just want you to make this work in whatever way is best for you. So you could do routine tracking here. You could just do a quote. There's some other ideas here of how you can repurpose this section. So obviously that's a lot of examples that we've seen up on the screen, so don't worry, I'm going to hop back through all of them and I'm going to put on some music for you to work on these two sections. Let us know what you are putting in the chat, what's coming up for you, and then we'll move on to our next section. All right. We are now going to hop down to the bottom of page 32 with our habit and activity section, or as some of you now call them, habities. I have been repurposing this section to a stress check-in, and it's actually been working really well for me. I've been trying to do a better job of kind of building that mind-body connection so that I can start to notice when I'm starting to get stressed or have stress triggers instead of just like, oh gosh, I'm already stressed and I'm so stressed that now it's too late to do anything about it. So I try to, at least Monday through Friday, check in once a day and kind of rate like, what was my sleep quality last night? How's my muscle tension? What's the brain fog slash distractions like today? Am I having any stomach issues? Do I have a headache? And it has really helped. I'm kind of surprised like how much more often just taking a few minutes a day to kind of check in has allowed me to notice as those things are happening throughout my day and I'm starting to have those like stressful triggers and moments. So I'm going to keep doing that until I feel like it's time to do something else. So I'm just going to keep at it for now. But you can do whatever speaks to you in this section. If you do have habits and activities that you would like to track for this week, certainly feel free to put them here. Obviously, we do have, the overall like habit wheel for the month at the front of the journal. And typically what we say is like whatever you put in that habit wheel, that's something that you want to track every single day versus in the weekly section, this may be something you are only tracking for this specific week, or maybe you only want to track it a few times a week. Or if you're leaning into the activities part of this more so than the habits, right? Maybe there is something this week specifically that like you're doing that's fun. Like maybe you're wanting to get outside 3 times a week because you've got a little bit more free time, you've got more of an open schedule, or if you have a more busy schedule, right? Looking back to those to-dos and things, maybe this week specifically is a week that you want to make sure you're carving out time for like some mindful breathing and other things like that. You do not have to set a goal or an intention of how often you want to do something. You can kind of just track it as it comes. You can fill in every line there or just a few. This can also be a great place for like routine setting if you're trying to start like a new bedtime routine or morning routine or anything like that. You can also track things that you want to stop. Like if you want to stop biting your nails, for example, this might be a good place to track that. Sorry. And then also some other tips here. Again, you could try focusing on activities over habits. You could track something to welcome in a current season. So we are obviously fully in summer now, even though it may not feel like it yet for some of us. Are there some different things in summertime you want to lean into and track specifically? There's a little summer self-care menu that might have some ideas for you. You can also use this as a space for like connection with others, yourself, with pets. Mark your journal progress too. You could use this as a place to make sure that you are checking in with that habit wheel at the front, that you are using that mood tracker, that you are looking at the sleep trackers and other pages in the journal and getting the most out of it. Or if, like me, you have access to the personalized coaching plan, then you could also use this to track how often you are interacting with that platform and using your coach. Great question, Kira. Maya can share some links and things to the personalized coaching plan. Neha's also doing some webinars and things actually next week that are free. So we'll be sure to share those links again too for anybody that might like to join. You also can just say no thanks to this section. Just take a break, put some stickers here, put a quote here that you like. You don't have to fill in every section of the journal just because it's there. It's okay to skip things that don't work for you. It's okay to take breaks from things if it is time to take a break. Again, this is all about you. It's your journal, what is going to work best for you. So don't be afraid to switch things up and try new things. So I'll put on a song for you all, and then we will hop into our next page together. All right, we are now going to flip on over to page 33, and we are starting with the section titled Meal Plan. Now, this section gets repurposed a lot, not because having a meal plan or a meal log is a negative thing. It can certainly be a very positive and beneficial thing if that's what works for you. But it just takes up a lot of real estate in the journal, and it literally is like a box for each day of the week. So it kind of works for a lot of different things. And so some people decide to track their, eating habits in a different way, and repurpose this for something else. Myself included, I use this to keep track of my work meetings throughout the week. And then on the Saturday and Sunday space, I've started incorporating like the tip of the day that comes from the personalized coaching so that I can take a minute and kind of look at that. It's kind of like a shorter reflection exercise usually, and it's usually tied into action. Like it'll ask you to like reflect on something or think about something or visualize, and then it ties directly into like, okay, now how can I use that towards these other goals that I have for today? So that's what I do with my spaces here. But there's all kinds of things you can do here. You can absolutely use this as intended. You can use this as a meal plan or a meal tracker. I know a lot of you like to just use this to try to plan like one big meal for the week, right? Like if you're just trying to figure out dinner, for example. But you can also use this for affirmations. Somebody did a declutter plan. You can use this as a journaling space. I love that. Like this week I learned, created, loved, remembered, and accomplished. Um, or these mindful moments, focusing in on that, happy moments as well. This is another great set of little journaling prompts here with the meal plan for my soul, kind of like taking that original thought and making it a little bit different. And there are some journaling prompts there on the left too. Also loved these like stickers along with today's number ones. I love anytime we can like get creative and visual, and like anytime a journal really looks like you're just like having fun and letting it be your space. Again, you can put your to-dos over here if that makes more sense to you as well. If you need like family schedules or personal schedules, this can be a great place to do that. So I'll put on a quick song for you all to think about how you want to use this section, and then we'll hop over to our other sections. All right, we are now going to hop over to our mind, body, health, and shopping list sections. Now, I like to combine these in my setups because a lot of people are starting to kind of use these interchangeably or use them together. I change mind, body, health, like I cover up the plan because to me it's just mind, body possibilities. And this particular week, I was able to kind of connect it over to like my schedule and kind of think about plans I already have that connect to mind, body, health, and also where there's space to do other things, like on Monday having a do nothing night. But sometimes I just like use it almost like a word cloud space and just write different ideas and stuff there that I could pull out from. And then the shopping list is an actual shopping list for me. It helps me to have like a running list of things that I intend to buy because it keeps me from impulse buying them. Sometimes I'll impulse buy things because I'm afraid that I'll just forget to buy them. So having a running list helps. And then underneath that, I also have a running list of like larger to-dos. These are things that like I have no intention of doing this week or this weekend, but if somehow some space opens up and I'm like, oh, I actually have time for a project today, then I can kind of refer to that list and say like, okay, what's reasonable for me to get done in this amount of time? So having that kind of running list helps me also not lose track of those things. Here are some examples from our wonderful Sonder fam from Sharing and Sonder Club. So you can make an actual plan. If you are making a plan, please make sure that you're also carving out time for rest because rest is so important. And also consider the 7 types of rest. They're up here in the top right because maybe you have been trying to rest physically and you're still feeling drained. It could be that you need a different type of rest. Maybe you need to do something creative, right? A lot of us do a lot of like creative problem solving in our day-to-day lives, but maybe it's time to actually put our hands into some arts and crafts or something like that to kind of give us that creative reset. Here are some other great examples. As always, you can just feel free to use this as a space to stick some of those stickers. I always say if it makes you smile, then it's still serving a purpose. So even if you just stick a sticker to brighten your day, I think that that works. There is all kinds of things here like bingos, and I like this explore the possibilities of your new space. You don't have to do it all at once, just go slow. So it can be a great time to kind of check in and give some overall reflections and things. Some folks really like the wardrobe planner where they kind of plan out their outfits for the week, or if you're getting ready to go on a trip, that can be really helpful. Lots of more examples here, and I like all of these little suggestions here in the center, including you could reflect on the weekly quote. So in the top right of this page, there's always a quote every week that goes with the theme. This week's quote is, "The purpose of life is a life of purpose." So you could use one of these spaces to kind of take a moment and reflect on that quote and see if anything comes up for you. So I will throw on another song, and then if you can believe it, it's going to be time for us to wrap up our time together. It always goes by way too fast. Well, friends, if you can believe it, it is time for us to call an end to at least this social. As we close out our time together, if you would like to share what you are loving, we would love to see it. I'm currently loving kindness, just because it definitely turned what could have been a really terrible weekend into like a pretty good one. Just the kindness of others. So that is what I'm loving. So if you'd like to share what you're loving as we close out, we would love to hear that. Also, we'd love to see your planner and what you ended up doing in your pages if you feel comfortable sharing in Sonder Club. We would love, love, love to see those. And you never know, we might end up pulling one of your examples for a social like you saw today. Also, as you heard me talk about, the personalized coaching platform is something that I use every single week as a part of my routine. I also absolutely love the 24/7 chat option. I used it a ton in my awful, terrible, no good, very bad weekend, and it helped me out tremendously. So if you're curious about that or interested, Maya will drop some links, sorry, in the chat where you can learn more. And Meha is doing those events next week. Also, speaking of events, I'll share my playlist link to my master playlist here in the chat. But speaking of events, if anybody here is in the like Minnesota or like general Midwest area, Jennifer Krippner, one of our other facilitators, is doing an in-person event Wednesday the 11th. If you happen to be in the Minnesota area, Stillwater, I guess, is the area specifically. And we'll drop the information for that just in case you can make it. I know that she is excited about doing her first one. So let me drop that playlist here for you all. As always, this session was recorded along with all of our other sessions. So if you ever need to go back and watch or can't make it to one, you can always check out the recordings on YouTube and they are there for you. Just give them a couple days to pop up on the site. It was our sincere pleasure to be here with all of you and to welcome in this new theme of June. I hope that you all have a fantastic Saturday. And until next time, we'll see you all in Sonder Club.
Let everything come naturally. Oh, loosen the grip of what you need. Home is a state of mind, you'll see. I know